Elvis Presley truly hated her more than anyone. Elvis Presley was born Elvis Aaron Presley on January 8, 1935 in a small two-room house in Tupelo, Mississippi. Elvis Aaron Presley came into the world in very simple circumstances that were completely different from the worldwide fame he would one day reach. His twin brother, Jesse Garon Presley, was stillborn. This event deeply affected Elvis' sense of destiny and left him with a lasting feeling that his life had special purpose. Raised by his parents Vernon and Gladys Presley in an environment of poverty but also deep family love, Elvis grew up surrounded by the sounds of gospel music at local churches, the blues from Ballestriate in nearby Memphis, and the country songs played on Southern radio. These early influences would later blend into a style of music that was completely his own. By the time Elvis's family moved to Memphis in 1948, his passion for music had begun to grow. He worked odd jobs to support his family, but also followed his dream of making a name for himself in the entertainment world. In 1953, with just a few dollars in his pocket, Elvis nervously stepped into Sun's studio to record a song as a gift for his mother. That simple act would forever change the course of music history. Sam Phillips, the legendary producer who owned Sun Records, saw something special in the young man's voice and stage presence. By 1954, Elvis recorded That's All Right, a track that would start his career and launch the rock and roll revolution. Elvis' breakthrough came not only through his sound, but also through his style. His hip-shaking dance moves, slicked back hair, and smooth voice excited audiences who had never seen anything like him before. To many young fans, he represented freedom, rebellion, and youthful energy. To critics and conservative voices, however, his wild performances were shocking and even dangerous. Yet, controversially made him more famous. And soon Elvis was launched into the national spotlight. Appearances on television programs like Ed Sullivan Show drew record audiences, making his place as a household name solid. Throughout the late 1950s and into the 1960s, Elvis became not just a singer, but also a movie star. He appeared in over 30 films, including hits like Love Me Tender, Jailhouse Rock, and Viva Las Vegas. While many of the films followed a pattern and critics sometimes dismissed them, they showed his magnetic screen presence and expanded his influence far beyond the music world. Young men wanted to copy him. Young women adored him, and his global reach made him an ambassador of American culture. In 1958, at the height of his fame, Elvis was drafted into the U.S. Army, an event that could have stopped his career. Instead, it made him more human in the eyes of the public. Serving in Germany, he proved that despite his superstar status, he was willing to do his duty like any other American citizen. It was during this period they met Priscilla Beaulieu, who would later become his wife and the mother of his only child. Lisa Marie Presley, the 1962 saw Elvis balancing his film career with his music, but by the end of decade, he was eager to return to live performances. His 1968 television special, later called the Comeback Special, marked a winning return to the stage. Dressed in a black leather suit, Elvis delivered an electrifying performance that reminded the world of his raw talent, charisma, and lasting star power. This event brought his career back to life and led to a string of legendary concerts, particularly his residency in Las Vegas, where he developed the image of Elvis in the iconic jumpsuit, amazing audiences with his commanding presence. However, behind the glitz and glamour, Elvis struggled with personal challenges. The pressures of fame, a demanding performance schedule, and those of prescription drugs began to take a toll on his health. Despite these struggles, his voice remained powerful and his connection to his fans never faded. He continued to record hits like Suspicious Minds, In the Ghetto, and Burning Love, songs that showed both his versatility and emotional depth. When people think about the personal life of Elvis Presley, perhaps no relationship is more widely remembered and examined than his marriage to Priscilla Beaulieu, the woman who would become his only wife. Their story began in an almost fairy tale manner, but unfolded with all the complications that come with love, fame, and the constant pressures of living in the public eye. Elvis and Priscilla were married on May 1, 1967 in a highly publicized ceremony in Las Vegas, Nevada at the Aladdin Hotel. The wedding was a glamorous affair, though relatively small by Hollywood standards, attended by close family, friends, and a few members of Elvis's inner circle known as the Memphis Mafia. Priscilla, glowing at the age of 21, wore a stunning white beaded gown with a 3-foot veil and rhinestone tiara, while Elvis, always the picture of Southern charm and style, wore a black brocade silk tuxedo with a paisley silk tie. The ceremony lasted only 8 minutes, but the photographs and media coverage made sure it would live forever in the history of celebrity weddings. Their marriage symbolized not only a union of two individuals, but also the merging of two very different worlds. Elvis, already an international star by the time of their marriage, lived a life filled with constant touring, recording sessions, film contracts, and adoring fans. Priscilla, on the other hand, was still very young and had been introduced to Elvis as a teenager while he was stationed in Germany during his US Army service in the late 1950s. Their courtship was unusual and controversial, as Priscilla was only 14 when they met, but Elvis was fascinated by her youthful beauty, grace, and maturity beyond her years. Over time, she moved to Memphis under careful supervision, eventually living at Graceland, where her role as Elvis' partner became more firmly established. The early years of their marriage were filled with both excitement and challenges. Elvis's career was at a turning point in late 1960 seconds. After years of making formulaic movies, he was ready to return to live performances and meaningful recordings, which culminated in his famous 1968 television comeback special. During this period, Priscilla provided stability and companionship, often dealing with the difficult realities of being married to a man who was worshipped by millions. Despite the glamour, their relationship was not without strain. Elvis's demanding schedule, combined with his increasing reliance on prescription medicine, late-night lifestyle, and frequent time spent away from home, made it difficult for the marriage to succeed in the traditional sense. On February 1, 1968, less than a year after their wedding, the couple welcomed their only child, Lisa Marie Presley, into the world. The birth of Lisa Marie brought Elvis tremendous joy, and many close to him remembered how fatherhood softened him and gave him moments of genuine happiness during his turbulent life. For Priscilla, becoming a mother at 22 years old added another layer of responsibility and complexity to her role, as she was not only Elvis's wife, but also the caretaker of their child and a young woman trying to figure out their own identity in the shadow of one of the most famous men on earth. As the years passed, however, cracks began to appear in their marriage. Priscilla, who had given up much of her youth to be with Elvis, began to feel the need for independence and self-discovery. She pursued interests outside of Graceland, including studying karate, a passion she shared with her instructor Stone, with whom she eventually had a romantic relationship. Meanwhile, Elvis, despite his deep affection for Priscilla, struggled with faithfulness. He was frequently linked to other women both casually and through more serious affairs, which further damaged the trust between them. The lifestyle of a globalicon combined with personal insecurities and temptations made it nearly impossible for Elvis to maintain a traditional monogamous marriage. By the early 1970s, the emotional distance between them had grown too large to endure. In 1972, Priscilla moved out of Graceland, a decision that marked the beginning of the end of their marriage. Yet, despite the separation, both Elvis and Priscilla remained deeply connected, sharing custody of Lisa Marie and maintaining a friendship that lasted even after their divorce was finalized. On October 9, 1973, their divorce became official just 6 years after their wedding, but it was carried out with remarkable civility compared to many high-profile Hollywood splits. Both walked hand in hand out of the Curtis in Santa Monica, California, smiling for the cameras, a symbolic gesture that showed their mutual respect and commitment to co-parenting Lisa Marie. When it comes to Elvis Presley, few people in music history have carried as much mystery, charisma, and legend. Fans often imagine him as a man who lived surrounded by love, who loved many and was beloved in return. But in the flashing lights and the glittering jumpsuits, Elvis also had his moments of frustration and anger, and certain people left scars on his heart that he never quite forgave. In fact, there was one surprising figure who, according to stories that have been told for decades, became the subject of his deepest resentment: Dolly Parton. This revelation shocks many because Dolly herself is remembered as one of the kindest, most generous, and most down-to-earth entertainers in the business. She has rarely, if ever, spoken badly of anyone, and her image has always been wrapped in humility, Southern grace, and a sense of humor that never fades. But when her name crossed paths with Elvis Presley, the results were far from warm, and the disappointment that followed left Elvis carrying a grudge that became well known in music circles. The spark of this tension came during the height of Elvis's fame, when his powerful voice and stage presence made him the king of rock and roll, and Dolly Parton, who was then an up-and-coming star in country music, had written and released what would become one of her signature songs, "I Will Always Love You." The ballad was raw, heartfelt, and deeply personal, written as a goodbye to her longtime business partner and mentor, Porter Wagoner, when she made the difficult decision to branch out on her own. The song quickly gained attention for its honesty and beauty, and it didn't take long before Elvis himself heard it. Moved by its lyrical strength and emotional weight, Elvis wanted to record his own version. For Dolly, this seemed like a dream come true. She loved Elvis, as did nearly every musician of her generation, and the thought of hearing him sing her work felt like an honor beyond measure. But then came the moment that destroyed everything. As the negotiations began, Dolly was faced with a business demon that left her heartbroken. Elvis's manager, the infamous Colonel Tom Parker, told her that for Elvis to record the song, she would have to sign over half of her publishing rights. That meant giving up 50% of her royalties for the rest of her life on a song she had written from the depths of her soul. Dolly thought long and hard about the decision. On one hand, the idea of Elvis Presley singing her song was almost unimaginable in its prestige. It would have launched her work into even greater legendary status. But on the other hand, Dolly was a smart businesswoman, and she understood the value of holding on to her publishing rights. It was one of the only ways artists could ensure long-term financial stability, especially women in a male-dominated industry. After much reflection, she reluctantly said no. That single no changed everything. Elvis Presley, who was not used to rejection, especially from someone who admired him, took the decision personally. For him, Dolly's refusal wasn't just a business matter. It felt like a slight against his artistry, a denial of his ability to make her song immortal. In private conversations, Elvis reportedly expressed his bitterness about Dolly's choice. "She broke my heart with that one," Elvis is said to have confided. "I loved that song, but she wouldn't give it to me." The sting of rejection was sharp, and Elvis, who had always seen himself as king, found it difficult to accept that someone would turn him down. From then on, whenever Dolly's name came up, Elvis's mood reportedly shifted. Friends who were close to him said he never fully got over the refusal. "She shut the door on me," Elvis would mutter, a mix of sadness and resentment in his voice. To the public, this animosity was never on display. Elvis remained a skilled showman, his smile hiding the bitterness underneath. But those in his inner circle knew that Dolly Parton had become the one person he felt had wronged him more than anyone else in show business. Ironically, history would prove Dolly's decision right. Years later, Whitney Houston recorded her own version of "I Will Always Love You" for the film The Bodyguard, and the song became one of the biggest hits of all time, securing Dolly's financial security for life. Dolly herself often expressed regret that Elvis never recorded the song, not because she doubted her decision, but because she truly loved and respected him. She once said, "I cried all night because I had to turn down Elvis, but I knew it was the right thing to do." That honestly shows how complicated the situation was: mutual respect tangled with hurt feelings, admiration clouded by business realities. In the end, Elvis Presley carried his grudge quietly but firmly, while he was known for his charm and generosity. His pride was just as strong, and Dolly Parton's refusal became the wound he never allowed to heal. To him, she was the one who said no, the one who kept him from a song felt destined to sing. And for that reason, though the world may celebrate both artists as legends in their own right, the story of Elvis Presley and Dolly Parton will always carry the shadow of a partnership that never was, and a bitterness that stayed in Elvis's heart until the end of his life. His drug addiction got worse after the divorce. On the morning of August 16, 1977, Elvis was found on the floor of his bathroom at Graceland. The doctor said that the immediate cause of death was cardiac arrest. He was only 42.